All right, so today we are looking at taking notes on solving multi-step equations. All right, so there are 4 little steps to this that you're going to see up here that we will talk about and fill out here. So to solve a multi-step equation, you need to complete the following step. Step 1 is to simplify both expressions on each side. Okay, so you want to simplify both expressions on each side. And when I say on each side, I mean on each side of the equal sign. All right, so simplify both expressions on each side. Step number 2 is to subtract, one variable from both sides. And now I'm going to put out in parentheses, this is if needed. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and change something. Instead of saying subtract, I'm going to say move. Okay, because it's not always subtract. Sometimes it's adding. Sometimes, there's a variety of things. So you want to move one variable from both sides if needed. All right. Step number 3 is something that we've been doing. It is to solve the equation using inverse operations. Now I'm using a lot of mathematical terms here. All right. And when I say solve equation using inverse operations, what I mean is you just want to undo things. So if it was adding something to it, you would subtract it. If it was multiplying something, you would divide it. All right, all those things that we've been doing. And then the last step, I'm going to change the color because we're going to do this at the beginning, but it's not something that you have to do the more that we do this. But the final step would be to check your answer. And I'm going to show you how to do that, but then I'm going to tell you that we will be, to be very honest with you, we're not going to do this all the time. This is something that we would do in the beginning, all right, and then talk about it from there. So let's come down here and look at this equation, okay? So the first type of equation that you're going to see on the left, this is an equation when all your variables are on the same side, okay? Now, when it comes to solving multi-step equations, the first thing you've got to do is simplify it on each side. Now, why that is big and why that is important, if you look at this, you'll notice that you have 2 times x plus 5 plus 3x is equal to 20. Well, before you can look at doing all your other stuff, you've got to simplify this left-hand side. And how you do that is you've got to start by taking that 2 and doing what? Not just subtracting, distributing it so you can try and simplify it. So when you distribute that 2 times x becomes 2x. 2 times 5 becomes 10. What was already over there? A plus 3x, and it had to equal to 20. Now, is the left-hand side simplified? No, it is not. And the reason it is not is you have a 2x and a 3x. Well, if you were going to simplify that, that means you would need to combine those terms. The reason we can combine them is they are on the same side of the equal sign. So 2x and 3x would make 5x plus 10 is equal to 20. Now, at this point, are both sides simplified? Yep, I got a 5x plus 10. I can't do any more over here. And then I've got just a 20. Here is where you would go to step 2. And step 2 says to move a variable so that they are all on the same side. Well, what's unique about when all your variables start on the same side, you can skip that step. You don't have to do it because there's nothing to combine with that 5x. Are y'all with me? So now at this point, it's just solving it like it's a 2-step equation, like we did last unit, and just getting that x by itself. The first thing you've got to do is undo adding 10 to 5x. How do you undo adding 10? Subtract 10. Okay? Once you do that, you're left with 5x is equal to 10, because 20 minus 10 is 10. Then you have to undo multiplying x by 5. How do you undo that? Divide it by 5. And you end up getting that x is equal to 2. Now, here is the checking step. And I'm going to do it on these notes just so you know how to do it. But it's something that in the long term you're not necessarily going to have to do. But here's what you would do. To check it, you take the original equation, and anywhere you see an x, you plug in the number that you found for it. So for example, if I was checking this, I would have 2 times, instead of an x, it would be 2 plus 5 plus 3, and instead of an x, it would be 3 times 2, which has to equal 20. Okay? And then what you would do is you would just solve this, okay? And see if it matches up and works out. 2 plus 5 becomes what in here? 7. And 2 times 7 is 14. Over here, 3 times 2 becomes 6. So it's 14 plus 6 equals 20. And if you simplify that, you would get 20 is equal to 20. That is a true statement, so that means that answer is good. That's what it means to check. Any questions there? All right. We're going to go ahead and do the one on the right-hand side, and then I'm going to let you try the next two. Okay? Ready, set, let's work at it. Now, as you look at this one to the right, the thing that is different here is this one is when your variables are on opposite sides. All that means in the long term of things is we're going to have an extra step. However, before we can get there, we've got to make sure both sides are simplified. Well, if you look at the left-hand side, 6y plus 12, that's already simplified. There's nothing else you can do. Is the right hand simplified? No, we need to take that -2 and distribute it to both things. So you get 6y plus 12 is equal to -2y minus 20. Now, both of these sides are combined and simplified. However, like we looked at, we have y's that are on opposite sides. Well, we need to get all our y's together. Now, it doesn't matter how you do it, but I personally prefer to try and keep my variables positive. So what that means when I look at these is instead of subtracting a 6y, I would try and move the 2y so that I can keep y positive. Well, how do you undo subtracting 2y? You add 2y, but if you do it to one side, you've got to do it to the other side. Notice how I line them up. I'm adding the 2y from this side. Well, to make sure that I combine it with the right thing, I put it directly underneath. Once that happens, it cancels from one side. 6y and 2y make 8y plus 12 is equal to -20. Is anybody lost with what I've done so far? Okay. Well, now at this point, it's exactly what I was doing. I want to get my y by itself. Well, before I can do that, I got to get 8y by itself. 8y has a 12 being added to it, so to undo that, I would subtract, leaves me with 8y is equal to, well here, -20 and -12 make -32. Divide them both by 8, and you end up getting y is equal to -4. Okay? Now, if I were going to check this, you come out here to the side and I'll show you how. Anywhere you see a y, you would plug in a -4. And then you just simplify that problem out. Well, 6 times -4 is -24, plus 12 is equal to, well, over here, -4 and 10 make +6. -24 plus 12 is -12. -2 times 6 is -12. Well, does -12 equal -12? Yes, it does. So that is why this does work. So you got to plug it in and show that it equals the same thing. All right, now what I'm going to do is have you try these 2 examples below. Ready, set, go. All right, so now after looking at these 2, let's look at them and see what you should have done and got out here. So on the first one on the left-hand side, this is one of those where the variables were on the same side. As you can see, both x's are on the same side. So the first step is to simplify and get them to work out. So that means you have to distribute the 5. So you get -3x plus 5x plus 15, which is equal to 23. All right. Then looking at those, you need to combine your x's. So a -3x and a +5x would make +2x plus 15 is equal to 23. Then solving for the x, you would subtract 15 from both sides. 2x is equal to 8. Divide both sides by 2. And you would get x is equal to 4. All right. Now, I'm going to stop checking it. I'm going to be honest with you. This is not something that I do a lot, but y'all have seen the process of how to check it. So if you needed to, you just plug it in and make sure you get the same thing on both sides of the equal sign. All right. So you get x is equal to 4 there. All right. Now, same idea for the next example you were supposed to work out. However, this time you'll notice that your variables are on opposite sides. Okay. So that means you will have to do step 2 from the steps that we took. As you look there, again, the key here is making sure you distribute that 3 to everything. Now, what I told you is I always like to keep my variables positive. So here I've got a 3m and a 6m. Well, if I subtract the 6m over, I would end up with a negative in front. Just my personal preference. So for this, I would actually subtract 3m from both sides. It's just what I like to do, but you can do it either way. You would still get the same answer. 21 is equal to 3m plus 12. All right. Then I need to get m by itself, so I would subtract 12 from both sides. And you would end up getting 9 is equal to 3m. Divide both sides by 3, and you would get m is equal to 3. Did anybody get those 2 on their own? Anybody? Huh? You got the first one right? Okay. All right. So you'll see some of this. You'll see some of this practice. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change up originally what I was going to do. Originally, I had us working these problems on the back and then an additional homework sheet. What I want you to do is just work these problems on the back. And what I'm going to do tomorrow is I'm going to make 1 or 2 of you get up here and work them out on the board and present them. And it's going to be random. So what I want you to do is just go through and work out the problems that you see there. We will continue practicing this. Now, we also know now that we're going to take our test Friday over simply this topic. Okay? So there's going to be 1 or 2 more things that we introduce. Just different methods or ways of having to solve equations, different things you'll have to do first. But it's going to be over just solving multi-step equations. All right? So get started on those on the back, and we will go from there. Ready, set, go.